In the LDS Church, family history is kind of a big deal. I think it's pretty boring. I tried to get excited about it by taking a family history class at BYU, but to be honest, it didn't really do much for me. I didn't like my professor and how he's all preachy about it, and I effectively lost all desire to do family history work. I also can't really get over the fact that family history just seems like a bunch of names and dates, and I never really felt a connection to those people. It's hard to relate to people when they're dead. At least that's what I thought. My grandmother on my mom's side is an accomplished poet. She has a critically acclaimed poetry book called If I Could Speak in Silk, and she was Utah Poet of the Year in 2003. She writes a lot of poems about our family, which are pretty interesting, especially if you know who they're about, but I think her most interesting poems are about her mother. I never really knew my great-grandma. She was really sick physically and mentally when I was growing up, and she lived on the opposite side of the country, so we never saw her. Everything I knew about her came from little tidbits I'd hear from my mom or what was in my grandma's poems. When my great-grandma passed away in 2010, I barely even noticed, and I definitely didn't miss her, because how can you miss someone who's pretty much a stranger to you? I went years without thinking about her until a couple months ago when a poem showed up in my inbox. So my grandma will sometimes write poems and email them out to the family, and this is what it said. My Way by Judy Johns. My mother's single claim to fame was that she once danced with Frank Sinatra when he was singing in a bar with a group called the Hoboken Four. For her 18th birthday, she and 3 other senior girls slipped away from the Holy Family Catholic boarding school in Baltic, Connecticut, a private prison for wealthy girls, where they had all been incarcerated for wayward behavior. Well into her 80s, whenever I would brush her thinning hair, she would recount her experience as if she were watching a movie. At 5 on that cold and rainy December night, they escaped through the kitchen carrying paper bags containing their dancing clothes. In the crowded bus station bathroom, they changed out of their uniforms, shivering with the cold, laughing like lunatics. Storing the paper bags in a locker, they boarded the bus to New York. I had a difficult time picturing my toothless, arthritic parent confined to the single bed in an antiseptic shrine to her life as an adventurous young woman, even though the faded photos on the wall testified to her beauty as a young wife and mother. They left the bus somewhere in New York and went to the small bar within walking distance from the station. This was not their first rodeo. They ordered drinks, and no one asked for identification in those days, and settled in at a small round table close to the stage. The lead singer, a young skinny guy with a pompadour, had a voice as smooth and lovely as the blue silk dress she wore. The 4 girls applauded and yelled like the teenagers they were. Although it was 1937 and Sinatra was just beginning his career, Mother insisted she knew he would be famous someday. At the next set, he stepped down from the stage and approached them. In every retelling at this point, my mother's opaque cataract eyes would shine as if she'd swallowed a Christmas luminary. When he was close to their small round table, one of the girls pointed to my mom and said, "It's her birthday." The singer smiled and made a slight bow in front of her and asked her to dance. The dance floor was small, and people would compliment the singer as they foxtrotted among the tables, including Mom in their admiring glances. When the song ended, he kissed the side of her face and said, "Thanks, beautiful." My mother's frail hand would touch her left cheek, where a hint of the color alleviated the paper-thin pallor. When the slightly drunk girls left the bar, they read the poster announcing the Hoboken Four and the lead singer, Frank Sinatra. As a young girl, I couldn't understand my mother's fascination with all things Frank Sinatra. I thought it was creepy when she danced around the kitchen holding one of his albums close to her chest. But as I approach the backside of 60, whenever I hear a Frank Sinatra song, I think of my mom, and wish that I had met Elvis when I was 18. It's funny how stories can all of a sudden make a person real, and I was curious, so I googled her obituary. I found out that she graduated from nursing school at age 55, and that she was a Democrat and a Red Sox fan, but I didn't say anything about Frank Sinatra. I guess I don't know what I was expecting. After I read her obituary, though, I felt a weird sense of loss, like I had really missed out on something that I didn't even know I had. Now that I related to her on some level, she became real, not just Great-Grandma Hamblin, who had been more of a faceless idea than a person. In my head, she was Kathy, young and beautiful, the girl in the blue silk dress who danced with Frank Sinatra on her birthday. I wish I had known her better.